Hey guys, welcome to the Moe and O photo show. This is Omar Gonzalez.
And I'm Omar.
And this is, if you've stumbled upon this is a podcast between two high school friends talking cameras, tech, phones, basically two friends being morons.
Also, we also talk about coffee. And since I just seen the coffee cup come into the picture there, I have so missed your coffee. I think that's one of the biggest problems of everything going on is I've missed your coffee.
Oh, how many people I bet have discovered that they are horrible coffee makers, horrible cooks? There's got to be people who are like, damn, I rely on takeout and coffee.
Why? Why did the world go sideways when I'm such a horrible person at home? I'm better in public than I am at home.
Hey, it may help a lot of people. Like, I personally learned how to make pizza. Pizza was a mystery to me. You know, I was always looking for the perfect slice, and it's really not that hard to make a good pizza at home.
As long as you have the patience, it's one of the easiest things to make.
Isn't it crazy?
Once you get your personal dough set up how you like it, and then you just put it in the refrigerator or however you want. You could do it instantly. You just put it on the table for an hour and then cook it later right away. Me, I'm a refrigerator fermenter, so I prefer to keep mine in the refrigerator for 3 days minimum.
Yeah, dude, I saw your dough. Crust. It looked terrible. What happened? I saw your pizza.
I will punch you in the face. Disrespect my dough.
Bro, that pizza needs help, yo.
That pizza was delicious. What are you talking about, man?
It looked all dry and cakey, like it had eczema.
Oh, no.
You got to send me. I'm going to link up that picture right now here.
No, why don't you go look at the later ones I did that were in the pan. What happened was I have a stone in the bottom of my oven, right?
Yeah.
And it cracked because the heat must have been too much during the cleaning cycle.
Oh, okay.
And it cracked.
Damn, your oven is like industrial strength. The heat.
And I know what you're talking about now. I ran out of cornmeal, and I had no. What's the other one with the silica? The other flour that you could throw to be a grain based lubricant, so you could easily move it in and out.
Yeah, yeah.
So all I had was flour to throw on that, and it just really made it uglier. But if you go look at the ones I did in my cast iron pan, those are delicious.
All right, I'll check those out because I was about to say.
Yeah, the ones I showed you. Look
at me. I made 4 pizzas, and I'm like a pizza snob.
You're like a snob already. You better sit down, son. I've been making cast iron pizzas longer than you have.
I know. I easily become a snob. I make one good coffee, and I'm like,
It's like you. I do one push-up. Look at me. I'm a gym master. Yes. I'm going to go join the MMA now.
You know, it's so funny you say that. I watched 3 videos on how to repair a guitar. Now I'm like bragging to my wife. I'm like, I just built the guitar.
Guess what? New business.
Yeah, exactly. We're so excited to talk about the Canon R5 and really discuss, because a lot of videos have been released on the R5. Who is this camera for? Because it looks really exciting, but maybe should we bring our excitement down a little bit?
It's not for me.
Yeah.
That's what it's not for.
Before you get to that, Mo, why don't you give us some of the specs, like half of them, and then I'll do the other half.
Well, first of all, it has the 5-point axis for in-body stabilization. IBIS. IBIS. It works also with your lenses. So if you want to use it more on the lenses, you can turn it on or off. You can use them conjointly like twins. It's going to give you the option to do 4K 120 frames per second. Like what?
That's amazing for people who love the slow-mo, and you are the slow-mo.
It's also going to offer 4K, 8K, and no crop, full sensor recording.
Yeah,
what?
Not only that, that's incredible. And the other thing is, not only is there no crop, one of the issues with the Canon R and RP lineup, and also the Canon M50, is when you would put it into 4K, you lost one of the best features of Canon video, is dual autofocus, which is
autofocus.
Yeah, it basically the dual pixel autofocus is great at just attaching to your face or eye and following you anywhere. So I've shot some videos.
Much better than contrast-based focus, yep.
Yeah, totally. And if you put it in all those other cameras into 4K, you lost that best feature. So it kind of crippled the Canon cripple hammer. Yeah, totally. it crippled the camera, and you had to shoot really your videos in 1080 because it couldn't grab focus onto your face if you were doing a talking head or any kind of video. But the other one that's interesting, it has the full articulating screen, same as the Canon EOS R. That's expected. But dual card slots, which is a big upgrade from the Canon EOS R.
But
one of them is CF Express, and the other one is UHS 2. What are your thoughts on a fully articulating screen as opposed to kind of like the Sony that goes up and over? What are your thoughts on those?
I think they both have their uses. I think for me personally, if I was going to shoot a video, I'm not a vlogger, walk around kind of guy. So I think over on top of everything, Sony style, that's pretty decent. It's all I need. I could just look at what I'm doing and everything's good. And I'm not looking to the left or the right. I'm looking just above the lens, so it's not too much distraction.
Yeah.
I think with the Canon is better based for vloggers, right? If you're going to be out there vlogging, instead of looking up, you could just look a little over and then bring it right back to center. So I have no problem with it. It's just not what I would choose, but you know, because that's not the kind of videos I would shoot.
Yeah, I think part of the issue is with the one that's above, it blocks a microphone. So that's one of the issues. But it's easily remedied with putting some kind of cage or some, microphone.
I don't consider that a problem because if it has a solution, it's not a problem. Yeah. That's just my theory.
Yeah, totally. So the screen is not a big deal breaker at all. It does 20 frames per second shooting electrical shutter. So sports shooters can use this if they're shooting 20 frames a second. Also, if you're photographing airplanes or cheetahs. And 12 frames a second mechanical. That is more than enough for almost any use. The mechanical shutter, 12 frames per second.
And we'll get into it, but are a lot of photographers going to buy this camera?
All right, well, I got some discussion points here. All right, so here's what we don't know about the camera. We don't know how expensive it'll be, what the price is. But we're kind of guessing 5D Mark IV, release. When the 5D Mark IV was released, it was $34.99. But that was a while back. Do we have to mark it up for inflation? Is it going to be like a $39.50?
I think everything this camera has, if they come out and tell you $4,400, I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised.
This camera has better specs than Blackmagic video cameras. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
So if they price it over 4.4, I wouldn't be surprised.
It's going to be pre-ordered. Yeah.
This camera is going to change the game completely. So what happens when you change the game? You change the price walker too.
Yeah, you change it up.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
This ain't cheap, son.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. It's kind of a super video beast. We don't know recording limit. So Moe and I, for the Moe and O photo show, used the Sony 6400 because it has no limit on recording. We've passed that 30-minute mark. When we used to be together, buddy. When we used to be together. We used to pass that 30-minute mark like nothing, and the camera totally not overheated, and it could record over 30 minutes. With the Canon, we used to have to stop. We'd have to keep checking our record time. So for some people,
and that was with 1080p though, right? And
that was 1080p. Still had
1080p had a 30-minute time limit. Yeah.
Yeah, so that could be a deal breaker, I think, for some people, is if they're recording conferences or something where they don't want that interruption in recording. It's something that we have to wait to see if it has.
And based on the specs that they're saying, based on the conference call that Canon had with some people, they're saying that it has the same body as the EOS R, right?
Yeah.
So if it has the same body and you're doing 8K video, and it doesn't have a fan like the Panasonic cameras do, how long can you really record in 8K before that thing just ignites on fire? I was watching The Art of Photography, and they mentioned that he had a guest on talking about the camera, and he mentioned that it's possible that Canon has come up with a new proprietary cooling system.
They got ice cubes in there.
Because without a fan in the camera, you're going to need some way to dissipate that heat, because recording 4K gets cameras hot. Recording 6Ks can melt sensors. How about going all the way to 8K now?
It's a little landmine. It becomes a landmine.
And let me ask you a question. Is the world ready for 8K? America. is the world ready for 8K? Do we need 8K in our mirrorless
Marquez
right now?
Brownlee. I know Marquez Brownlee is salivating over this camera because he uses RED cameras to record a lot of his stuff. He shoots 8K because he can crop in on anything and it's still 4K.
But
yeah,
I mean, let's be honest. The video output that the average person is putting out, even YouTubers, do you and I for the Moe and O photo show need that? Do you need that for your channel? I mean, that much of a punch in? I mean, honestly, you've been killing it with 1080p, and when you give us the treat of 4K, everyone's like, "Oh, look, it's 4K, very exciting." But I don't see. I honestly don't see people turning off a YouTube video because it's 1080p.
Yeah. So I'm going to say that number one, anyone that is recording anything, they know content is key. They should know content is key. So it doesn't matter what resolution it's in. Is what you're recording engaging? That's number one.
No. Hold on. No 720, son. Get out of here with that.
That's true.
No 480p. Get out of here.
Oh my God, 720.
Or 480p? Continue. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. So that's number one. And then I think Canon has been marketing this camera as what the 5D Mark II was, which is completely game-changing for people who are filmmaking. And so I kind of envision them sort of, hoping that people will use this camera in production. For example, the Canon 5D Mark II was used to record an entire episode of House just to show everyone... and that wasn't done by Canon, but someone shot a whole episode of House, the show House MD, with just Canon 5D Mark IIs. It seems that they are, sort of shouting out that this is a game changer for filmmakers. And so my question to you is this too much camera for photographers?
If you are a photographer who dabbles in the occasional video for your wedding, or you have a second shooter that's capturing that video for you, this is too much for you. If you're a wedding videographer, no, this is not too much for you. But yeah, I think if you're just a photographer, you might be better served with still rocking a Sony A7 III or a Canon 5D Mark IV. I don't think you need this camera if you're just a photographer. I mean, and I just say just a photographer, but you know what your value is, what you want to deliver to your clients. I think whatever you are, you need to wait 6 months for this camera to be out before you make a decision, one way or the other.
Yeah.
Is the photo?
Yeah.
Is the photo quality going to be what you're used to delivering or better? You can't go backwards. Are you going to lose the 7 stops of HDR
the high dynamic range? Dynamic range is not. Oh, that's a great point. We know nothing about dynamic range, and a lot of people have jumped from Canon to Sony because the Sony dynamic range and Fujifilm's dynamic range kills the Canon. If you expose poorly on a Canon 5D Mark IV, like sometimes my flash will burst too close to someone, unsavable. The image is done, toast, cooked.
Forget about it, ladies. You know the procedure.
But if you're Sony, blast someone with flash, you can bring those highlights down and save them. So that's a good point that you said. Is you have to look at the full package of what kind of shooter are you. If you are mostly a videographer or making films, damn, this camera is like a dream camera, really.
No matter what. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, and I was also going to say, are you a professional shooter where this camera is paid for with 2 jobs, let's say? Or are you just kind of someone who's strapped for cash and you like the newest gear? You may not need this camera. You kind of have to balance everything out,
Yeah, don't let the ego with the need to upgrade to the latest and greatest, everything new, get you in trouble.
I got to fight that because I'm a semi-Canon fanboy. And I'm holding on to my 5D Mark IV, which I love the sensor on this camera. Here it is, right here with the little.
I mean, but you started with them. This is what got you going. I mean, what was that first car you had? The 40D or something like that, or the D40?
My first Canon was the Rebel, like the Rebel XS plastic thing. Yeah.
So that's the whole thing. Like you have a place in your heart for Canon. I don't. So to me, if it's gonna have to be like left Nikon, and that really hurt because when I had the D850, I thought I was on top of the Nikon world. That was the top of. I couldn't think of anything better than that. Then I found out the XQD cards cost like $300 a pop. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna rock this single SD card only.
Yeah. I'm shooting small JPEG. I'm sorry, is there a micro JPEG on this?
So, but the whole thing was like, you know, you knew what you know what you left. You would love to come back to it, but it's gonna have to convince you that it's going to give you what you left for. Are they going to be there to bring you back into, you know, bring you back home? You know what I'm saying?
Okay, I can see someone that would enjoy this camera immensely. So imagine if it's 45 megapixels, which is kind of like guessed and rumored, anything from 30 to 45 megapixels. If you're a landscape photographer and you're sort of a hybrid, imagine you're a hybrid landscape photographer that does like a little bit of video and you also shoot beautiful landscapes. How perfect to have all those megapixels for your landscape and your print work. But then, man, you're shooting 8K Costa Rica wildlife, and
Yeah.
what do you think of that?
Hey, that sounds pretty. I mean, exactly. I mean, that's one way to come back into it. I mean, but those are going to be far and few between. This camera, Canon is specifically saying, is for videographers and photographers. Until more on the photography side comes out, I can't co-sign that. Obviously, you know, Canon has, for the last 3 years, and correct me if I'm wrong, have gone down a path of letting down consumers, giving you the hype and the promise, and then once in hand, failing to deliver.
Yeah, with removing small features. You know, they remove the
removing
dual,
small features.
But this is kind of like answering all the critics, you know?
Right, that's exactly like this camera is the unicorn in the world right now, you know?
Yeah,
Does it
totally.
really exist? Are we really going to get what's promised? I am 100% hopeful, because if they introduce it, guess what? Nikon's going to want to do something like it. Fuji's going to want to do something like it. Sony's going to have to do something like it.
Yeah.
So, you know, what Marquez always says, you only get better innovation once something new is introduced by some specific company.
Yeah,
You know,
totally.
if
It's
you're not
up in the-
challenged, you just garbage it, you know?
Yeah, I agreed. And, you know, companies, I lost you. Oh, there you are.
I'm sorry. I saw these two things down the bottom. I'm like, what are those?
Oh, the shiny button. Let me press
Yeah,
it.
touch it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. This is our first time using Zoom, by the way. We used Skype last time, but anyway. I was going to say a couple things for wedding photographers. I am an event photographer myself. I'm curious to know if it has a small RAW option. One of the things with these big megapixel cameras, gosh, they take beautiful RAW files, but they fill up hard drives if you're shooting large number of photographs. And sometimes small RAW photographs with large megapixel cameras, they're good enough. You know, like a small RAW is you can print
Compressed raw, right?
compressed RAW, yeah, so that you know your file sizes are not 100 megabytes per second. Some fast photos.
You are awesome.
Yeah, so that's number one. Is there a small RAW option for wedding photographers? And then what's great, because if I do portraits, I'll put that puppy on full RAW and get beautiful, you know, I can crop in, I can get beautiful full 45 megapixels. But if I'm shooting the party and people dancing, I can shoot a 20 megapixel, 16 megapixel photograph and be fine.
Whatever the final price is on this, you also then have to think about other things that are going to add to that price.
Oh,
if
yeah.
you're not part of the RF lens system, you're going to have to buy RF lenses, and they have a beautiful 28 to 70 f2, which imagine shooting some video on that. But
Oh man, yeah.
the thing is, that starts at about almost $3,000.
Yeah, totally. Now you're up, let's see, $7,000, and that's just one lens.
And then you have to worry about storage.
Oh yeah, so let's talk about
the-
that. So here are the prices for the CF Express cards. So right now for 128 megabytes, which is a good size, you can put a lot of photos on there. $200 for a 128 megabytes. $400 for a 256. And again, if you're a videographer shooting 8K, you need these cards. And $600 for 512. So you could, theoretically be putting in another $1,000 in cards if you're, shooting in the field.
Right, and with 8K video, you could burn out a 256 gigabyte in like less than a minute. So
That's
so what are you
crazy.
gonna do? And then once you have this all recorded, where are you gonna store it at home?
Yeah, well, I think we're thinking of us. I'm sure that someone is salivating over this. They've got hard drives, they've got the cards already. No, we have to sort of see who this is for. And
Right, but
again,
I'm making these points not to be negative because honestly, I sound negative and I apologize for that because I'm really actually excited about this. I want this to come out. I
oh,
want it to
totally.
work, but I'm bringing these points up for those people who are just this is so new. I have to buy it when they don't
Oh,
realize
they
what's
don't know
going to
what
go
it
into it.
is. True,
They're
true.
not
Because I
they're not
do get
sure what they're really
people.
getting into.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it brings up an excellent question. Is the Canon EOS R, which by the way is on sale for 1700, is that good enough? And man, that camera is great. You should totally get that camera if you don't need the 4K face, dual pixel autofocus on your face. If you're just casual traveler, we can't even travel anymore. Forget it.
No,
Forget I
no,
said
you
that.
stay home. Abort, abort. No one leaves the house.
No one leaves the house. If you are an indoor photographer,
If you're shooting
but the
birds from your sofa,
yeah. I mean, no one's doing photography now anyway, so all this is moot. But I think for travel and casual shooters, I think this is way too much of a camera, and you're served better putting your money into food and rent.
yeah, true. But here's the beautiful thing about this camera. Again, I sound negative about it. It's not negative. It's just I want people to be careful when they go out and buy it. But here's the most positive thing about this camera. If it works, what do most camera companies do when they bring out a whole new top of the line camera for the professionals? They somehow water it down a little bit for the
True.
prosumer, the
True.
regular consumer. And a lot of these things watered down would still make a great $1,500 camera,
All right, so let's
$1,800
pretend.
camera.
Yeah, let's pretend. Even like, yeah, probably maybe a 24.99 camera. Well, hey, that might have 4K 30, which is perfect. And it may have dual card slots, which are both SD, you know? And you know what? It's not
Hoopa.
45 megapixels, it's 30 megapixels.
Right.
Would you sign up for that?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
based
right?
on the images and the hand feel of the what was the ROS,
EOS R.
the EOS R that you had that I get to hold and it felt so good in my hands. It was meaty, beefy, but not super heavy.
Right?
If you could do something just like that and bring it into this new tech and new specs, I would love that.
If you need a
If you
camera right now, I mean the Sony A7 III, if is it fits into your workflow and it has, if you have lenses for it, is an amazing camera. I use that on my event shooting and my professional shooting. But if you have if you're in the Canon ecosystem, this is a very exciting camera for videographers, and I'm super on the fence whether I would pre-order it or not because I don't really need. I want. you know.
this is one of those examples that Apple. We're gonna go back to Apple for a second. One of the things Apple has taught me is they're gonna get some. They're gonna introduce things, and then eventually they're gonna master it. I'm
Yeah.
not a big fan of buying anything first generation Apple, but second, third generation, I'm all in because they listen to the people, they get all the kinks out of it. And think about the Apple Watch 4 compared to the Apple Watch first series. That watch is so good that if you don't need the always on display, there was no reason to jump to the 5. Yeah, so I would not pre-order this at all. I would definitely put this on the let's wait and see how it
Let's wait
actually
and
ends up.
see. I think the fear that people have though is that like back ordered, when you go to a site and it's like back ordered everywhere. So you really have to be patient. You have to think if I don't really, if this doesn't fit all my needs, like if you're not dying for 8K and for all the features that it has, like if you can live with something else, you can wait another year. And especially now, we don't know what the economy is doing, for event photographers and the
The reality
industry,
of life, period.
the reality of life. Let's not get caught up with the,
Yeah.
the hoopla. So you have to weigh yourself. You have to weigh what kind of shooter am I? Do I have the funds? Will the camera pay for it? Pay for itself in a few jobs? And what am I going to do with 8K? Am I really going to use that on my YouTube? If you're just a YouTuber, I think 4K is what you should be aiming for. So there's other cameras that do that. But what Mo said before, the trickling down, the Canon EOS R trickled down its stuff to the RP. So we want to see, what are we trickling down to something that is a little bit more obtainable in the $2,000 range? That's going to be exciting.
Yeah, like the A7 9.
The A7 IX. What are you making up cameras now?
The AR9.
The A79. No, I know
The
what you're
R8.
saying.
What am I saying? What brand
You're
is
saying
that
the
one?
A9 trickled
The
down.
A9 period. So the A9 trickled down to
A7
where
III.
you have not even that far. I'm going lower. I'm going to the A6400 with the eye autofocus and the
PET
animal
even.
focus. So nowhere near the same camera, but a lot of the same features,
Trickle,
and that's
baby.
a trickle down effect. Trickle,
That's
let
right,
it
baby.
rain. Let it rain.
All right, so guys, this is, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe down. We are, again, two friends that talk tech, camera. We'd love to hear your comments below if you're going to pick up the Canon EOS R5. And I hope they just call it the R5. I think everyone's headed towards dropping the EOS.
Right. So if you do comment, though, let us know, are you primarily a videographer or photographer
good point.
or a little bit of both? That way we can get a sense of like who seems to be, drooling over this camera more than not. So honestly, I would love, if I could afford this camera, I would definitely love to see how it goes in 6 months and pick it up. Because the one thing I always wanted to try with Canon is their color science. And I think if you give me half the specs that are on the video side to the photography side, I think we're going to have a complete winner here.
Totally. All right, guys. Thank you for hanging out with us, buddy. Love you.
Always
stay safe.
Be sexy.
All right. Can we high five here? Let me see the screen. I'm over here. You're on the wrong side. There we go. All right, buddy, man.
All right. Be good.
All right. We'll see you guys. Stay safe, stay indoors, and learn how to make pizza. I'll link up the recipe below.
Get out of here. My pan pizza, son, all day.
Your pizza got eczema, yo. Bye.
Yo.